Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very pleased to have Miss Danielle Orsino here with me. And we are going to talk about her incredible story of how she became a writer and talk about her book. And we might even dive a little bit into the paranormal. So, Danielle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Thank you.
First and foremost, thank you. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the Birth of the Fae series and see what trouble we can get into discussing all things Fae. So let's get it started.
And for anybody out there who doesn't know, Fae is like fairies. So I'm being a paranormal investigator. I know a little bit about that stuff. I actually have some video footage I'd like to send you of what looks like a fairy that has followed me at least twice. So,
oh boy.
Captured on film. So
that sounds like in my world, that would probably be a will-o-wisp. But you know, everybody's got their own definition of Fae. My Fae in my book, I've taken the origin in a totally different direction.
Oh, okay.
So I took it away from, I don't want to say I've taken it away. I've just reinterpreted it from the usual Celtic mythology that we all kind of know and love, or the Tinkerbell mythology of, you know, little insects with wings, or little mischievous insects with wings. Mine are angels who just were locked out of heaven. Some of them were involved with the war between their creator and Lucifer. Others were sent here to Earth to get it ready for their creator's next experiment, which was humans, and found themselves just unable to return home. And that's kind of where the story picks up. And they have to figure out, now what do? We don't have a job anymore, which I'm sure at one point or another we can all relate to, when our identities are so wrapped up in our jobs. Now what happens? So we have the virtue angels who were sent here to get the planet ready. And they're, you know, your nature angels. They guard the elements, the flora, the fauna, that kind of thing. And then we have the power brigade angels, who are the foot soldiers of the archangels. Because in my world, I would think the archangels wouldn't do the fighting. They would send somebody out to do it. You know, let's not get our hands too dirty kind of thing. And some of them are injured, and some of them are told here, wait here. I'll be right back. I'm going to check the gates of hell. And so the power brigade sit here and wait. And then they realize, well, no, nobody's coming back for us. And the two groups are just left here, and both blame the other group. And then they have to make it on their own. And that's the gist of book one, Locked Out of Heaven. And then I have 4 books, and that kind of shows these angels who then decide to call themselves Fae. And Fae stands for the Fellowship Aegis of Earth, the Defenders of Earth. And they then break up into sects, the dark and the light Fae. And it kind of just goes from there and shows their evolution.
Now, before we get any further into the book, I'd love for you to share the story of how you became a writer in the first place. That's why I wanted you on my positivity show, because I think it's a great story.
Thank you. It's not your orthodox kind of, one day, you know, I just always wanted to write. No, I was actually working as a nurse, an LPN, in a Lyme disease clinic. And in this clinic, we took Lyme disease we took it very seriously, but we also treated very aggressively. We had patients that dripped every single day on IV, 7 days a week. Did not matter if it was Christmas, New Year's Eve, you dripped, because Lyme disease is still a disease that in the medical community, how to treat it is up for debate. Some people just say 30 days of doxycycline orally and you're good. Some people just say 2 weeks. Nobody to this day really figures it out. And the doctor I worked for was very much about IV medication. So a lot of the patients have been sick for years, misdiagnosed. One patient I grew very close to, our paths were just mirroring each other. He started the same day I started. He was my first stick, everything. It was kind of funny. So what had happened was he'd been dripping for about a year and some change, and basically had moved his life up from Pennsylvania to New York just to get treated, because he had been sick for a long time. And after this, he had to get back to work. I'm sure we can all relate to, okay, enough. I have got to get back to my life. And so the deal he struck with the doctor was he would go home. He would come back on a Wednesday, drive 5 hours, drip for 2, turn around, go home, return on a Friday, drip Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, go back home. I knew this wasn't really going to last, but okay, whatever. This went for about 3 weeks, a month. And then he was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I worked with the doctor on Wednesdays and just seeing patients. I rearranged my schedule so I would be there when he came in, so I could kind of keep him company a little bit. And one day he just said, Danny, I can't do this anymore. Don't want to. I'm done. I'm out. We kind of had a back and forth about, you got to stay in the chair. You got to do this. And he's like, well, then do something to keep me in the chair. And he was like, I don't know, entertain me. So we just struck up a conversation. I said, tell me something interesting about yourself. We'd shared a lot of stories, and he said, I was recruited by the CIA out of college. And I'm like, whoa, okay. I was like, that's kind of cool. And he said, I didn't take the job. He explained why. And I'm like, oh, you should have. We could have found out what was going on in Roswell, all the conspiracy theories that you go down that hole. And he was like, no, in back and forth and, whatever. So I said to him, I was like, well, do you know where Lyme disease comes from? Once again, down the conspiracy rabbit hole. Plum Island, this, that. And out of my mouth to this day, I have no idea why I said it. I was not reading any books about the Fae. I was on my vampire kick. I said, no, the Fae. They're getting back at us for the way we treat the environment. Lyme disease is their punishment. And he looks at me and he's like, the Fae. He's like, what the heck's a Fae? And I'm like, fairies. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, come on, some big CIA agent. I just threw him in the story and started treating him like he was the CIA agent. And he's like, yeah. And he wasn't getting it at first. And I'm like, you've been sent here to find out if the nurse is really the brains behind this operation, and if she's a Fae human hybrid. And he kind of sat back and he started getting, he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, who are the Fae again? And then once again, out of my mouth comes angels that were locked out of heaven. And he's like, what? And he just sat back in his chair and listened. And every day I just told him another story about the Fae. And if something happened in the IV room, it just wove it into the tale. And I made him Agent Graham, a CIA agent sent here by, this shadow CIA part of the CIA, and just kept kind of paranormal division. And I would just weave things in and tell him about the Fae. And that's how it really began. It was just me telling him a story to just keep him entertained and make him part of the story. I never thought I was going to go write it down, but that's what it turned into. And that's how the spark kind of grew.
I love that story. Whenever I read it, I was like, wow, this has got to go out to my audience, because somebody out there's probably had a similar experience, and now they might be motivated to go out there and put it on paper. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I encourage you, if you have some kind of story, even if you personally don't think anybody else would like it, write it down. You might be surprised. Yeah. 100%. I never knew this would take off. Yeah.
No. Right. You don't know. That's the whole thing. Is I was so set in my ways, and he kept telling me, you need to write this down. You need to write it down. And I was like, first of all, I'm going to physician assistant school. I've already paid for my pre-regs. I've worked my butt off. I'm going to go fill some faces full of Restylane. I ain't got time for this. Like, I have stuff to do. And he was like, I'm telling you. And I really fought it. I kept fighting it because I was like, authors don't make money. There was all like, I was going the logical route, and the universe had other plans for me, but I wasn't telling him the story to make money. I was telling him the story to entertain him, to keep him in the chair, because I was thinking about him. I wasn't thinking about me. I was just telling a story because I'm like, this is keeping him there. It's keeping him entertained. We've got a conversation flowing, whatever. That was not my intention, was to write books. And I didn't know how to. If anybody ever wants to hear what not to do, come talk to me, because believe me, I've done it. I've done everything you should not do. I did. Trust me on that. And when it did come time for me to write the book, I hand wrote it because I still didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I remembered what I said because, once again, this is the universe saying this is what you're supposed to do. I would go home and think about what I told him and play it in my head like a movie. And so it was, my brain was like, we need to remember this. We're going to find a way. So when I did finally sit down and write it, I wrote it in journals, and I would start to write it. And then I'd be like, oh, wait a minute. People are going to want to know how that happened. Let me go back. And I'd open up another journal and start writing a chapter. And they'd be like, oh, but they don't know who the king is and how he became the king. Okay, let me write that down. I had journals upon journals of half-written things. I had no clue what I was doing. I was on an interview once and somebody went, so are you a plotter or a pantser? And I stared right at the camera and I went, huh? And they're looking at me. And I finally went, is that a sexual thing? Because I really had no idea that was an author term. I was just staring at them like, and finally the host went, okay, this is what it, like, explained it. And I was like, the first time my editor asked me, you're not using the Oxford comma, I stared down at my keyboard and I was like, where is the Oxford comma? Because I was like, it's got to be on here somewhere. And they were like, no, it's not a special comma. And I was still looking at the keyboard like, damn, you betrayed me. Somebody should have told me what the hell an Oxford comma is. Because I'm not a classically trained author. Mm-hmm. But that still shouldn't stop anybody for trying anything. You'll get the hang of it eventually. There's books, there's things. You'll figure it out. If you have a passion for something or an idea, just try it. Believe me, there's somebody else out there thinking the exact same thing, like, oh, I want to do this. If you take the leap, somebody will follow. Oh, and you'll probably meet a kindred spirit along the way that's thinking the same thing. I can't tell you how many authors have been like, yeah, I didn't know what the Oxford comma was either. Like, I did the same thing. I looked on my keyboard and was like, is it this? Is it that squiggly thing? No idea.
I have no clue what that is. I guess it's how you use the comma. Or...
Yeah, exactly. But for a long time, I was like, am I supposed to, like, is it something like I got to hit a shift or an alt to get it? I don't, when was the last time I was in English class? I don't know. So you figure things out as you go. And, sometimes not knowing isn't a bad thing because that's how you break rules and break new ground. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes it's kind of cool to have a little naivete. Not a bad thing because you don't get put in a box.
Right.
And I'm totally not in a box. So I can honestly say, as I sit here with big, butterfly wings coming out of my head and velvet, I'm definitely not in a box.
Gosh, the last time I took an English class was at community college, and that was nearly 30 years ago, and I don't remember any of it. But somebody told me I needed to start writing a book, and I thought, really, me? But why not? Maybe somebody will like it.
You never know. I mean, I think everybody has a story in them in some capacity, whether it's creatively, whether it's a biography. You never know. And I always get asked, like, what's your best writing advice or what, and I'm like, just write. Because whether you're writing about trolls, mermaids, fae, cowboys, whatever, it's all about interpersonal dynamics. Every character loves, gets angry. You break it down to the basic emotions and interpersonal dynamics. It's all the same. It's just you add scales or, horns. Yeah, it's the same. It's just the setting. And then you can kind of build off of it. That's really what I did. Every character in my book is somebody I know. That's, and it's my personal experiences. The metal gnome Hoggle's my dad, and his assistant Marco's my Uncle Ronnie. I just watched them fight all the time in the auto body shop. That's where I got it from. I have a bunch of uncles. My Uncle Ronnie's the only one my dad could work with. They would fight like cats and dogs.
Yeah. But
they always got along. Now, you could not ask my other uncles to work with him because there would be wrenches flying back and forth. Something would happen. So it was, when it came time for me to invent Hoggle, my dad was it. My dad can take anything and he could take a piece of metal and he makes something extraordinary out of it. So there was the inspiration. Who would he work with? Well, Uncle Ronnie's the only one he won't kill when he works with him. There's Marco, so you just take it and you make something out of it. Lady Serena the Mermaid is my best friend from high school, Jen. And it's our talks on the beach, when you're 16 and you think you know everything in the world and your conversations are so deep. We've all been there. That's what it was. So when Aurora and Lady Serena are on the beach discussing what's going on in the Court of Light, that was me and Jen. Girl talk, sitting on the beach at Fawnstock, Lake Fawnstock, because, we didn't have a big sweeping ocean in front of us, discussing our lives. And, they're discussing palace politics and really earth-shattering things. Jen and I thought at 16 we were discussing earth-shattering things, as we all do. So it's just a matter of perspective and going from there. I think that's really it.
People should write down the story of their lives. Just write it down, because I know even myself, it's like, oh, nobody's interested in my life, but I think of some of the things that I've gotten to do, and they're really inspiring things. Write it down, and if it happens to turn into a story like yours where you can use other people as the characters, you might have a hit on your hands. It's the creative process. You never know. You come up with the next Great Gatsby or something. You never know.
That's just it. You don't know, because to you, you're like, that wasn't a big deal. I just went to the store, or I just went here. But to someone else, it's also the color you put on it, where it goes, and what happens. In my martial art career, I've competed several times up and down the East Coast. I've competed in over 500 tournaments, and some tournaments have gone smooth and easy, and other tournaments have not. But that shaped Desdemona and how she does her training and things like that. All my tournament stuff has kind of shaped my warriors in the Illuminasca in the book and things like that. So it's just mundane things that to you was every day. To someone else, it's like, wow, I've never thought of martial art competing, but there it is, and that shaped my warriors.
Right.
So it's just you never know how someone else is gonna take it and interpret it, and how to them it's like, wow, that's such a different aspect, and how it colors your world and their world. So I think you just don't know until you write it down.
Well, think about it. What's the most popular thing that most people will watch on television? It's the reality TV. It's other people's lives. You could find something interesting in they might not think it's that interesting, but other people do for whatever reason. So I think it's an awesome idea. There's people in my life I guarantee you would make good characters. That's for sure.
Exactly. There's always one person. I guarantee it. There's always somebody that you're like, you know what? That's a character waiting to happen. You just never know. You just have to look, and I'm sure you can find it.
Oh yeah, my family for sure.
Yep. Usually family. Usually family.
So how long you been doing martial arts?
I started martial arts when I was 19 on a whim. My dad, I wanted to go to New Orleans with my best friend Jen, and my dad made a bet with me. He's like, you get your yellow belt in Taekwondo and I will let you go, thinking I would never last. And I lasted. So, he let me go. That, of course, in itself was my first class was a disaster and a half. I walked in chewing gum, hand on my hip, walked in front of all the black belts, everything. Once again, if you want to know what not to do, come talk to me, because I've probably done it. And my dad knew the instructor because they belonged to the same gym. So he knew exactly who he was. I belonged to the gym. And I walked in a crop top, low slung, sweatpants. Like I said, everything you shouldn't do. Chewing gum, walked in front of the entire line, stood with the highest ranked black belt in front of him, hand on my hip, And the instructor walked in, and I stood there, hip cocked, chewing gum. And he was like, "And you are?" I was like, "I'm here to learn karate," just like that. Just like that. Because I'll never forget the look on everyone's face. And he went, "The new students stand down there," and he pointed to, there were 3 kids, and they even outranked me. They were blue belts. They even outranked me. And I looked down and I went, "That's where the kids are. The adults are over here." And he just looked at me and kind of nodded up and down. And Jen was with me, and my friend Jen literally went, "I'm out of here," and just walked away. And I was like, "Where are you going?" Whatever. And he was like, "You're here to learn." He's like, "First of all, it's Taekwondo." And I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." Well, I was literally like, "Yeah, okay." I was like, "Look, I just need to get my yellow belt so I can go to New Orleans." So whatever, I was or less. And he was looking, and he just looked me up and down, and he was like, "Come with me." And he took me to the back of the room, and it was like a multi-purpose aerobic room, hardwood floor. And he went, "Can you do a push-up?" And I went, "Yeah." And I don't do girly ones on my knees either. And he just smiled, and he went, "Oh, good." And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "Show me." And I did 1 push-up, and he went, "Could you do that on your knuckles, you think?" And I was like, "Yeah." He did 1, and he went, "Great, hold it." And I was like, "Hold what?" And he's like, "Just hold the push-up in the up position. Just hold it." So I did. And I, like, a couple times I went down on my knees. I was like, what am I doing? And he's like, "I just want you to hold it." And I did. And he walked away. And I was like, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "Just hold it. I'll be right back." And he walked away and started class. And I remember holding the position and thinking, why am I doing, like, what's wrong with my brain right now that I'm still holding it? And a couple minutes go by, and I'm sweating, and my arms are starting to shake because I'm like, what's happening? And then a little more time goes by, and my back is starting to sag, and and then he'd look at me, and for some reason I'd snap back because now I'm a little scared of the man. He starts class, he's yelling, things are happening, and I'm like, whoa. And he comes back, and I'm sweating, and he's like, and he gets down face level with me, and he's like, "Are you done?" And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Yes." Because I'm still trying to figure this whole situation out. He's like, "Yes, yes." And I'm like, "Sunset?" And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "Sir?" He's like, "Sir?" I'm like, "Sir?" He's like, "Stand up." And I stand up. He's like, "Go wash the makeup off your face. Go buy a shirt that covers your stomach and get back in here if you actually want to learn." He's like, "Because one of us will leave here in a body bag." He's like, "And it's not going to be me." He's like, "Either you will be my greatest accomplishment or you're going to die."
Oh no.
And it was like that simple, but it was the way he said it that I was like, yeah, I'm going to prove this man wrong. And I went and did everything he said, came back, and he was more shocked that I came back. Because when I showed back up, he was like, "Oh," like it was that moment of, "Oh, you're here." And he's like, "Okay." And I think I learned a front stretch kick. I learned a stretch kick, and I learned a down block. That was it. It was like my first class, but I wanted to do it so perfectly. And then he was like, "Okay, come back on Thursday." Like he was like, "Let's see if she shows back up." And I did. And I stood with the rest. And he was like, "By the way, my name is Mr. McLaughlin, and you will never call anybody John." His first name was John. He's like, "You never call them, by their first name." He's like, "Sensei is Japanese." He's like, "We're Korean," and I got the whole thing. And I was with him for 8 years after that. Wow. And I only paid, that was the first time I paid for the first month. After I showed dedication, he never charged me again.
Wow.
And I was with him. My first competition, he did not tell me I was competing. He literally kicked me out of the car. And he's like, "By the way, I signed you up for a competition. You're fighting today. Get out." And that was it. Like, he was very much into, he never told me anything. It was like baptism by fire was his way. And that's what he did. The first time I competed, he told me to show up at the school early one day because we were cleaning it. And I was like, okay. And I thought, all right, maybe he's asking me to work it off because I knew he wasn't charging all of a sudden. And I was a yellow, it must have been, I was doing those, I was a yellow 4-tip. And he said, get in the car. We got in the car. We were passing a bunch of cleaning places, places where we get cleaning supplies. And I'm like, okay. And then we just pulled up to a middle school. And there's all these martial art people. And literally he pulls up. He goes, by the way, I signed you up to compete today. Doing forms and fighting. Get out. And it was a tuck and roll. And I was like, he goes, I got your bag. Go. You're already registered. Get out. And I got out of the car and I walked up to the desk and walked in and I'm like, yeah, I gave them my name. They were like, oh, great. Okay. Beginner women forms fighting here. And they handed me a card and I'm like, where do I go? They're like, go to the gym. I walked in the gymnasium. There's people yelling and screaming. And I'm like, what? And then he comes in maybe 5 minutes later and he introduces me to the people part of our organization. And I met who became my Taekwondo brother, Mark Marzullo. He busts out laughing because I tell Mr. McLaughlin goes, this is Danielle. She's doing forms and fighting. I didn't tell her. She's learning now. And Mark takes one look at me and he sees I'm pale white. I mean, I'm like a ghost. And he just starts dying laughing. He goes, you didn't tell her? He goes, no. He's hysterical, like he's holding on to his friend and laughing. He goes, why wouldn't you tell her? He goes, I thought it'd be better this way. And they're just dying. And I'm like, could somebody tell me what's going on here? And he's like, yeah, you're doing forms. Go watch a ring and figure out how to introduce yourself. I'm like, introduce what do you mean? And he's like, you got to go up, like, ask permission. I'm like, they could say no. And Mark's like, yeah, they could. And he's just hysterical. I'm like, what? So I go up and I'm watching people. And I'm like, okay, I go up, I introduce myself, hey, and I finally look at my instructor, I go, I don't think I could say I represent Gold's Gym. And my instructor goes, oh yeah, by the way, the official name is the Academy of Korean Arts. And I'm like, we actually have a name for our school? He goes, yeah, it's not Gold's Gym, He's like, he goes, and I'm a Sabanim. Technically, I'm a 5th degree. And I'm learning all this, and I'm like, I've been with you almost a year, and I don't know any of this information. I go up, I do my form, I win. I'm like, yeah, I won first place, yay. And he goes, great, you're fighting. And then they inform me I have to wear female protective gear.
Okay.
I'm thinking shin guards. Like, I have shin guards. And the guy looks down in between my legs, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, I'm just staring. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, do you have gear? And I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, oh. So I was like, he goes, you can't fight without it. He's like, there's an equipment table. Go buy it. Okay. And he goes, because we're going to be checking with a bow. And so I watch him go up to a girl and hit her. And she just stands there and takes it. And I hear the thump. And I'm like, cool. Okay. I've never fought with anything down there. So we didn't even fight with headgear. This is the first time I'm wearing headgear. So I'm like, okay. So I go, I tell my instructor, he goes, okay, let's go. He said, it's a shield. That's all it is. He goes, you just stick it in your underwear, you're good. We get there, and the woman looks me dead in the face. She goes, we're sold out.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, all right, I can't fight. She goes, so my instructor goes, what if we bought her a juvenile-sized boy's jock strap? And I just remember looking at him and going, say what? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yeah, it's the same thing. And I'm like, I don't think it's the same thing. The other thing is flat. I was like, I don't think what you wear is flat. Mm-hmm. So the woman looks, she goes, I mean, I have one. He goes, yeah, I'll take it. And I'm still looking at him like, don't I have a say in this? I'm sorry. Do I? And he goes, you want to fight, right? I'm like, well, no, I already won a trophy. I'm good. He's like, yeah, we'll take it. And she hands me, takes it out of the package. She goes, do you want to see the size? I don't know how to size myself for this thing. Takes it out. And I'm looking at him, and she's holding up the jockstrap, and it's juvenile, boys. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, okay, I'd do better with 2 peanut shells and a rubber band right now than this thing. So I'm like, and he goes, yeah. We take it, and he goes, come on, go in the bathroom. Well, it's a middle school bathroom. So these stalls are not very high to begin with. Mm. We go into the girls' bathroom. He tells Mark, keep an eye out. We go in. He's holding the door, and he's trying to talk me through putting on a jockstrap. And finally, I look at him, I said, look, I want a guy to buy me lingerie and all, but this is not how I thought the first time was going to go. Got to be honest. I walk out with it over my pants. He takes one look at me. He goes, go back in. I go, what? He goes, put it on underneath. I go, okay. I go back in, put it on. I come out walking like John Wayne. I'm like, how do you, I'm like, this thing is uncomfortable. He goes, I know, you just got to wear it for a little. I said, I can't kick in it. I'm bow-legged. He's trying to keep a straight face. He's trying so hard. I go, and I'm walking like, it's literally like Bugs Bunny in Spurs. And I come walking out. Mark looks at me and starts laughing. He goes, what the hell do you have in your pants? I go, I'm wearing a boy's jockstrap. Oh, no. So I go, McLaughlin looks at him. He goes, go get a bow. I go, what? He goes, we got to check and see if it works. I go, you're going to hit me. He goes, you have to make sure you're going to pass the test. So I stare and I go, you're going to go get a bow. Let me make sure I get this straight. And smack me between the legs to make sure the protection works. He goes, yeah, I don't know if it covers everything. What do you think I have down there? He's like, well, I just need to go get the bow. I just look at him. I go get the fucking bow. Just go get the bow. Go get the bow. Go get the bow. Mark comes back with the bow. He goes, I borrowed it. Hit me. So I'm standing there getting hit several times between the legs. 2 instructors walk by and go, she didn't do that bad. She won, right? And I just walk out. I go, I hate everybody right now. I just hate you all. Just leave me alone. I'm going to do the fight by myself. Leave me alone. And I just walk out, and now they're laughing at me because I'm still walking funny to where I have to excuse myself as I walk because I'm shoulder checking people. Because I'm walking like Bugs Bunny. I get in the ring. I'm waiting. I can't even sit properly. And I'm sitting there, and the girls are looking at me like, what the hell's wrong with you? They call me up. I get up there, and the guy takes the ball. I go, go ahead. He hits me, and it's literally like, ping. And he looks at me because the other girl's got the plastic shield. And he stops and stares at me because the bow stops a lot further out than it would. And he looks at me, he goes, what are you? And I just point, I go talk to him. And I just point at my instructor. I go, I don't even know how to explain this situation right now. I said, because I know you can see the bulge. I just go talk to him. So he walks over and he calls my instructor over. He goes, what's going on? And he's like, they were out of the shield just wearing a jockstrap. And the guy turns and Judge looks at me and goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, how are you kicking? And I go, I don't know. I've never, and I just I said, can we just start the fight? So he walks over to the other girl. He goes, she's going to be a little pissy today. I'm just letting you know. Wearing a jockstrap, and just backs up and he goes, fight. And just, that's it. The girl starts bouncing around and I'm like, what is she doing? And she looks right at me. She goes, mantis. And I walk over and I just punched her. And I went, does that count? Guy goes, point. I went, great. And I just backed up. I'm like, I got to get this thing off. I got to get this fight over with. I'm wearing a jockstrap. Are we done? And my instructor goes, I should have put her in a jockstrap a long time ago. Fighting better than she's fought before, man. Won the fight, won sparring, walked out with 2 trophies. And I just looked at him. He goes, first of all, you should wear this at tests. He's like, because this is the best sparring I've seen you done. And I go, shut up. And he's like, no, let that go. He goes, from now on, I don't come with you anymore to tournaments. You do these alone. He's like, I will come once a year to check on your progress. And that's it. I said, I'm never wearing a jockstrap again. He goes, that's fair. That's very fair right now. I was like, I need to go to the bathroom and pull this thing off. He goes, okay, no problem, honey. He grabbed the trophies. I went to the bathroom. I came out. I was much better. much better after that. And that was my first tournament experience. I've never worn a jockstrap again.
I would hope not.
Never again.
He'd like to come out of there in a body bag that day, huh?
He might have. He knew he was close. He backed off of me a lot. And then he's like, why don't we go get you something to eat? I'm like, yeah, let's go get me something to eat. Yeah, good idea. Good idea there, sir. And he's like, yeah, you don't have to call me sir for the rest of the day. I'm like, good. And he was like, okay, honey. You know, he was very nice to me, I have to say. Probably nicest he'd been to me in a long time after that. He was very, very nice. But yeah, I was done. And that will probably wind up making it into the book at some point. One of my characters will have a similar experience. Not sure who yet.
I think it's perfect.
But yeah, she will, one of us will wind up with a cod piece of some kind in the Fae community that she don't want to wear. Can guarantee that.
I think after that, you earn the right to call him John.
Yeah, I think I've called him John twice in his whole life. And yeah, both times were with permission. But I was like, yeah, no, we're done. We're done with that.
You know, I was just thinking how a lot of people give this advice that you need to always know what you're getting into, and you know, you need to be prepared as best you can. But when you get training, or should I say, you learn the way you just did, I would learn better that way, I believe, than anything else anybody would have done for me. And I know I've approached like the podcasting, had no clue what I was doing. We bought a book. I read the book, and I'm going to tell you, anybody that buys a book about how to podcast, use it to start fire in your barbecue pit, because they're worthless. This is being hands-on, you know, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm still making mistakes. I'm still learning as I'm going, even though I've technically been doing podcasting for 5 years now. Just never stop learning. But I think people will get the wrong idea. You don't have to know everything. Just go out there and try. Yeah.
I think trying is the best. I've switched arts. I've gone from Taekwondo to Kung Fu to Wushu. When I competed for the WKA US team, I was competing under a soft style banner. That division, which for years under a hard style was, you know, a big change. Yeah. Anytime I've done it, it's always been baptism by fire. You know, even the first time I've cosplayed, everything was just, I'm just going to give it a go and see what happens. And if I fall flat on my face, I fall flat on my face. You know, at least I tried. I think
that's the main thing, is trying.
Yeah, you got to at least try. If you fall, you fall. I think when you try to go in too prepared, I like to be prepared. Don't get me wrong. I do, you know,
of course. I
want to be prepared. I don't, especially if I'm on someone else's dime, things like that. But if I'm just trying something, I'm just going to give it a go. I'm going to learn more that way than if I sit there and try to read up. I think if I had wanted to write prior to this, and I'd sat there and taken classes and read from a book how to be a writer, I probably would have messed it up even more than I did. I learned more just trying it than reading from a book and making the attempt the way people tell you to do it. Yeah. I think that's where you mess it up, because then you're doing it by someone else's formula. And it's their version. And I even see it sometimes in, you know, when you're dealing with critiques, you know, people are like, oh, the book should read this way, or I don't like the covers because I don't like, you know, people want to see illustrated covers, or they prefer typography cover. You know, I like lettering on covers. I don't like to see the characters on the covers. I'm like, okay, that's your opinion. And that's how you would do it. So then you go write a book and do it that way.
Right.
But this is my story. You know, I just had somebody recently, and they liked the book, but they went on for like a paragraph about how they don't like cosplay covers. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I was like, you're kind of missing the point. I'm a woman of I hate to use this term, certain age, that is on her cover. And it's not a vanity press. This was my publisher, Four Horsemen Publications, who saw my cosplays of my characters and went, what are you doing with those pictures? And I was like, I don't know. They were supposed to be for promotional. It was for a magazine that didn't wind up happening. And they were like, you know what? We're going to do something with them. And I was like, okay, what are you going to do? And they were like, I think we're going to put you on the cover. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? I mean, I stopped in the middle of the meeting and I was like, no, that's not what they're for. These are just promotional pictures. Like maybe I'll use them on Instagram. I don't know. And they were like, no, we're going to put you on the cover. And I said, okay, then here's the deal. You can't airbrush me. I'm a certain age. Like, if we're going to do this, then let's make a statement with it.
Right.
And they were like, okay, cool. And they said, then that's what we're going to do. And I said, and when the time comes that I can no longer be on the cover, I said, you're going to buy me a big boatload of Haagen-Dazs. You're going to sit me down and you're going to tell me I got to pass the torch. I'm going to cry. I'm going to curse. I'm going to tell you I hate you. And then the next day I'll call and tell you I love you. And we're all good. And they went, okay, cool. But as this person is going on about how much she doesn't like the cover and blah, 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 I'm like, you're missing the point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the only fantasy authors to be on the cover of their books. And I'm a female who is not 20 years old. And I'm a certain age, not airbrushed to look 20. You're missing the message. So while this is your opinion and that's great, and then they went as far as to say, if I could illustrate what I would like it to be, it would be so much better. I'm like, once again, I know this is how you would like it in your world. Go write a book and tell me. Or I get people who are like, I wanted Aurora and Jarvok together earlier. And I'm like, it's not your world though. Just enjoy it for the story.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all get along. But I think it's funny how people like to tell you how it should be. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cute.
But the thing is that let's say you did it that way. Somebody else is going to come along and say, I'd like it a different way. So I'm sorry.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
I always joke and go, but I'm the world architect. The Vale is my world.
Mm-hmm.
I would love you to visit, and I'll take you on a tour, and I will treat you really well when you're there. You're just supposed to look at the world and go, wow, this is okay. Somebody built this. It's like when you walk into someone's home and you don't like the paint colors. You don't sit there while you're in there and going, well, I would do this and I would do that. And I hate the fact that you put the sofa there. You're in their home.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy it. We're all having a good time. It's a good party. And then you leave and you go to somebody else's. And that's kind of what it's all about.
Exactly.
You're just visiting.
Right.
So I always find it really funny when you get to that. And you have those moments because I'm like, we're all just here to share and have a good experience. Just take it for what it is. And then move on to the next world.
Right. Well, when I'm reading a book, I kind of imagine what the author was thinking at the moment that I'm reading certain passages, and I would try to visualize what it would actually look like, and that's how you enjoy a book. That's what it's there for, to provoke your imagination and create those images in your head.
Exactly. I like people to get lost. And I've joked that, my books are high fantasy, which high fantasy is heavy. Let's be real, especially the first book. Anytime you're reading the first book of a series, they're setting up the world building.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can sit there and say, like, if you read Lord of the Rings, any of Tolkien's books, it's world building, especially the first ones. It's always a little heavier because you got to set it up. So when people are like, oh, there's world building, I'm like, yeah, it's high fantasy. I'm not romance by any means. I'm not romance. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but there's world building. So I'm like, it's going to be a little heavier, but my books are kind of your gateway drug into fantasy because they're smaller. I am not a 500-page book. My longest book is 300 pages. That's my longest one. After that, I'm short, I'm quick, I'm get in, get out, because I just want you to get lost in the world and forget about whatever your real life is just for a little while.
Yes.
So
that's what entertainment's for.
That's all it is. I'm here to just entertain you. So if I spend time talking about whatever the Foralina Forest looks like in my world, or, when you walk into the Great Hall, all the lanterns and stuff, I want you to get lost in the details for a second so you can really have that theater of the mind moment and just really lose yourself. And so when it's done and you put the book down for a second, you're like, okay, I know exactly what the Vale is like. And you want to go back and revisit and do that. And you're not like, oh my God, she's making these comparisons and it's way too realistic, like to this world. And oh boy, she's talking about a virus. No,
Right.
I'm talking about mermaids, people. Like, we are not brain surgery here. Like, I'm not taking myself that seriously.
Uh-huh.
It's not that heavy. I have mermaids, I have talking deer. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I have some philosophical things in there. I do have, there are religious undertones. There's things like that that maybe you could sit down with a book club and talk and have a really nice debate, but you're not going to be reminded of what's going on in real life too much. Maybe you could make assumptions or you can make some correlations if you'd like, but you're also going to be sitting there going, her dragons are really pretty. You know, that's where you might get lost for a second. Like, wow, you know, they have feathers on their head and they're really cool. Like, that's kind of what I want you to get lost in for 2 seconds is, I think her dragons could really exist. And wow, did you read that one paragraph about the ice breathers? Like, she went down into the physiology. That's kind of cool. I had somebody say to me, I hate to say religious nut, but that's what they wound up being, saying how sci-fi and fantasy is always based in reality. And her books are so convoluted because they're not. And I had to, and then they went on about how religions should be appalled by me and all this other stuff.
Oh,
And it was like a call to arms.
it's
The usual.
imagination, people.
And I laughed because I said, well, if we want to get technical here, because, you know, I was kind of laughing about it. My book is more based in reality than one would think. But I said, if all sci-fi fantasy books are based in some reality and mine is just so not, according to this person, I'm like, please let me know where the Wizarding World of Hogwarts is. What school was that based in? Because if you know, I would love to end up there. Please tell me. I'm like, let me know what galaxy far, far away Star Wars is at. Because once again, want to go visit it real badly. Tell me where these sci-fi fantasy books that are so based in reality are. Because once again, I need to go because I don't know where you're talking about, but I'm there. And my book really, it's a fantasy book. Like, let's just all get lost in it and have a really good time. Some stories are convoluted. Some of them are a little ridiculous. That's the point of a book, and that's a point of fantasy.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny you mentioned Star Wars because that had popped in my head how even though George Lucas borrows from, you know, different things that's going on in the world, he never makes it a focus of, you know, it's the Democrats and the Republicans fighting here. You know,
Yes.
we get enough of that on the news and social media and all that stuff. I want to escape from all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. I love Lucas. I love Jim Henson.
mm-hmm.
You know, I always Chris Claremont and the X-Men. Those are
Yes.
all Claremont I adore. I think Jim Steranko. I think those guys, especially the comic book world, do it really well, where they inject enough of a simile and enough metaphors from the real world that you're able to go, yeah, I see it, but it's not thrown in my face where I'm like, okay, it's clearly this. It's just enough where you're like, I get it, but I don't have to sit there and think, oh God, this is another message. It's just enough. And I think they don't get enough credit for that.
Yep. You're exactly right. And I think that unfortunately, like the movie studios and some of the comic books are getting too close to reality now that they're losing fans quickly. You know, that I see videos on it all the time, how they're just tired of all this stuff shoved in their face. They want to be lost in the world of the X-Men or Spider-Man or, you know, Batman, Superman. They want to be lost in Star Wars and Star Trek and all that. We don't want to hear all the politics that are going on. We're trying to get away from it. And
I want a good Dark Phoenix movie. A really good, like one that follows the comic book. That's all I want. I mean, it could have been good, but we went off the rails a couple places. I don't know what's going on. Days of Future Past wasn't bad. It was like I was looking at it going, okay, we're close. It wasn't bad. But Age of Apocalypse was just. But There were times where I look at X-Men and I'm like, we're close. We get real close, and then we just, I don't know what happens. I just wish they would get to it and get back to the heart of X-Men and just give it to me. It's close. It's just, like I said, we start heading down it, and then the train just goes off the tracks. I just think Claremont does not get the credit sometimes he deserves as a world builder.
Right.
He's also wonderful. I've met him. He's a wonderful person. Jim Steranko, his work on Justice League Unlimited, he wrote, was phenomenal. He's another wonderful guy. And I think some of these comic book writers don't get the credit they deserve because they've churned, when you think about it, they're churning out so many stories and they have to stick to such crazy mythology. I don't think they get that credit. And they are taking very hot button topics and weaving it in such an intricate but subtle way that it's really beautifully done. And I think we could, if some of these movies would just go back to the original source material and stick with it.
Yep. Yeah,
they would,
because you don't feel like you're being indoctrinated or you're being preached to. You actually you think you're in a different dimension basically when you read a lot of those books. I wish they would take one of the Tim Miller books and just make a movie to the T to his writings. I think they would make a great movie.
I think a lot of Frank Miller's stuff was
or Frank
really well.
Miller. I'm sorry, I said Tim, but I meant
I knew
Frank.
where you were going with. I think Ben Affleck was a good look-wise. I think we got close to Frank Miller. It was well.
It was
well
close.
done. It was close. Like looking at him, I'm like, I see it. The cowl, side of the shape of the ears. I'm like, we're real close on this. So I think had they followed through with a Frank Miller script with Ben, we probably would have gotten decent. But at this point, I'm also looking at it going, there's other characters. I mean, we could have gotten a good Swamp Thing. We could have gotten a good Justice League Dark. We didn't go, how many times can we retell Batman? I'm sure Pattinson is great, not, taking away from it. I hated
that movie.
I'm just like, where are we going, guys? I want to see different aspects to it. I think, killing the whole Batgirl movie, I took a lot of heat on Instagram when I said, yeah, thanks, Ezra. And people were like, it's not Ezra's fault. Oh my God. I'm like, first of all, don't tell me it's not Ezra's fault, because don't tell me that this was like, oh, it's just because of the merger. It's all this stuff. No, because the problem is the timeline continuity. The whole point of Michael Keaton being in this is because of the Flashpoint timeline. Exactly. They're still not sure what they're doing with it. So you can't have Michael Keaton helping her. That's part of this. And Sasha was supposed to make an appearance as the new Supergirl. This won't make sense if that happens. So yes, part of this is Ezra's problem. It is part of the issue. They don't know. That's why in San Diego Comic-Con, there was no discussion of the Flash movie or Batgirl or Aquaman, which is why Ben is being brought back in Aquaman to reshoot, because the Flash movie was supposed to be his last scene. He was supposed to be done, and that was supposed to kill him off as Batman. So why are they bringing him back in Aquaman if not to try to fix the continuity issue? That's why Batgirl's getting shelved. I'm sure part of what they said with the taxes and on the merger, I'm sure that's part of it, but they're also trying to clean it up. The way to fix this whole Ezra Miller BS, if you're not going to reshoot it, which I think they should, but okay, would be, now we know Grant is done as Flash. We know they're canceling the Flash thing. Would be to bring Grant, the new Flash, whoever they're going to cast it as, whether it's Elliot Page, or there's been a bunch of names, bring Adam Brody, who was originally cast as Flash in Justice League Mortal, George Miller's piece, and Michael Rosenbaum, who actually voiced the Flash on Justice League. Bring these guys in, film at the end of the movie, which we all know he's going to use the Speed Force to correct this timeline. Bring all these guys in, put them in different versions of Flash's costume, have them all running together in the Speed Force, giving Ezra the Flash power, the Speed Force, combining it. They all dissipate because there'll be a nice way for Grant to go out. And at the end, only one Flash is left because they've all used the Speed Force to correct the timeline. And whoever that Flash is, whether it's Elliot Page or whoever they're talking about, is the one Flash in our timeline. It'll give Grant a nice way to go out as the Flash, and you'll get fan service for all these guys who have played the Flash in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have it, you get rid of Ezra because now he no longer exists as the Flash. So he's done, and the new Flash remains, and all you have to do is shoot a couple scenes at the end. Yes, it's going to cost you money, whoever the new Flash is. You fixed it and go about your business. Is it going to cost you $1 million? I'm not saying it's going to be cheap, but also it gives fan service the same way Krasinski did as Mr. Fantastic. It gives you that fan casting. Even you could, if you wanted to get technical, you could even take Rosenbaum just voicing and have an animated Flash doing the same thing to show that the Justice League animated world is another Earth and have him running it. It's a way to do it to solve that problem for the end. Now, does that mean Warner Brothers should be calling me to fix this whole shit? Sure, call me, Warner Brothers. I'll fix you. Zaslow, call me. I got this handled. I'm a writer. No problem. I got this fixed, But I think Warner Brothers is trying to erase everybody from the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, well, I hear they're trying to keep Cavill out as Superman, and I think he's.
And there was no mention of Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah.
At San Diego, they said they've already started getting it together. I think Gal's out. I think they're all out. I think this will be Jason's last stint as Aquaman. I think they're erasing that whole Justice League, and they're going to move forward with something else. That's my personal, and I think this is where the comic. I don't think DC knows what they're doing. They want to copy the MCU, but they don't know how to do it. And I think Cavill's going to go over to Marvel, and I think he's going to be either Reed Richards or he's going to go Wolverine. I think that's what you're looking at him as.
Well, I've heard that the guy that plays Highlander on the Boys, is that what his name is? Highlander, whatever it is. I heard he was going to be Wolverine.
They were looking at him, I believe, for Dracula or Wolverine, because Carl Urban, who does as Butcher, says he's too old. I personally think he'd be perfect as Wolverine. He doesn't want to do it. I think he'd make a great Wolverine. I think that's a mistake. I think the guy who plays Homelander, I think
Homelander, that's what it is. Homelander.
Yeah, I think I could see him as Wolverine because I think it's an opposite of what he does. I'm just not sure. I think Wolverine is going to be such a difficult. Somebody like Cavill, I could see them wanting him because it's such an opposite, from Superman, and he's such a name that they could pull it. I'm not sure. I could see him as Reed Richards. I
think he'd be a good Reed Richards.
I could see that because it almost lends into the whole James Bond thing that he wanted. And I think it would be an interesting casting. I'm not sure where they're going to go. I think the MCU is in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, their movies have sucked.
I think it's a little convoluted too with this timeline. I'm not sure where they're going, but I think to get Cavill would be a huge pull and a big victory. I don't know who. I think he was a great Superman. I loved him as Superman. I wish they would do right by him.
I agree.
I don't know what they're going to do next. I've heard Margot Robbie's in talks as well for possibly the White Queen or the Invisible Woman to get Harley, to get the best Harley we've ever seen and the only Harley we've had live action, and Superman together as the Invisible Woman and Reed Richards. That's a pretty big get for Marvel.
Yeah.
Be kind of cool.
I heard his name come up and I thought he would be perfect because he's not very tall and he's kind of got the look. Is that kid from the Kingsman? I think he played
That's the name
Elton
that
John.
keeps coming up.
Yeah, I think he'd be perfect because Wolverine is short. These other guys are too tall, and I think he'd be perfect.
I like him as a Wolverine. And everybody laughs, but when I did see Daniel Radcliffe, when Boss Logic did the Daniel Radcliffe sketch, the art as Wolverine, I have to say I did stop and go, okay, wait a minute. This, I did not expect this. He looked really good. And it was enough to make me go, all right, back up.
He's got a little
know,
stockier too, hadn't he?
yeah, and I was like, okay, I need to compute this a little bit. This is a new idea. It was something that made me take notice, and I was like, this is interesting. So I'm open. I'm open to a Wolverine casting. I would like somebody shorter. I would like somebody, you know, back when it was dream casting time, years ago. Yeah, I always thought Bruce Willis was, a great idea for Wolverine, and way back when they were first thinking about it. But I'm whoever steps into that role has got big shoes to fill, regardless.
See, back in the day
Mm-hmm.
when before they made the first X-Men movie, I always thought, what's her name, Iman, would be perfect as Storm.
That was always, yeah, I totally
She
agree
had
with you.
the
I always
look.
thought,
She would have been
she was
perfect.
regal, very regal looking. I agree with you 100%. I always thought Iman that's who I pictured. When I thought of Storm, Iman was who I pictured. That was always kind of my Storm prototype when I thought of it. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I hope that they can get it together and finally get the X-Men really in a good storyline. I don't need an origin one. Please don't give me an origin one.
Yeah, we've had enough.
Just give me a good, good fight. I just want to see them go up against you. You want to give me the Brotherhood again? That's cool. Just give me some good X-Men stuff going on. I would even take it I don't necessarily want X-Men versus Avengers. I don't need good guys fighting good guys. That's not what I need. I just want some good X-Men stuff going on. There's enough from the comic books. Pull from that. You got enough going on. We can figure something out.
I really want some movies that are going to stay true to the comic books, though. Too many of them, they've gone so far off. Like the whole thing when they brought in Doomsday, and that's not even close to his origin. So
no,
I have the whole series of his Doomsday's origin and how him and Superman meet again, and that would have made a perfect movie, I thought. Stick to the way it was supposed to be. I mean, yeah, I know you got to tweak it a little bit so it's not exactly, and you have a little mystery to it, but you don't have to go so far off base.
And Snyder did say the real Doomsday is still strapped to a meteorite somewhere, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Doomsday's fought Wonder Woman, we could have gone different places. I did not love Eisenberg as Lex.
No, I thought that was terrible.
I thought he was the Riddler, to be honest. He was giving me Riddler vibes. If he had gotten into the helicopter, Joker had been waiting for him, and this whole thing had been a Joker Riddler thing, I would have fallen for it hook, line, and sinker and been like, wow, you just blew my mind. Holy cow, that was great. And the real Lex was being held somewhere. You would have given me a twist of the century, and I would have been like, this is great. I'm so in on this. I also have, and I've been ripped to shreds for this on Instagram before. I have a very controversial casting for Lex that I think if they want to shake it up, I have said this before, I think Peter Dinklage would actually make an interesting choice for Lex.
Even if he is short.
And that's why I say it.
Yeah.
Because he's very suave when he played Tyrion. He embodied everything Lex is intellect-wise, and it gives him a reason to hate Superman. And he's this epitome of he's this physical specimen. He's perfect. And he would have all the intellect and all the money and the power, but it's the one thing he can't have. So now he creates the exosuit. You go through what Lex does, and he can command a room with his presence, but he's so charming. He's got women, he's got everything. But the one thing he can't have is that perfection.
I'm still happy with Rosenbaum, though.
Oh, Rosenbaum's still the best.
He's been the best on screen that I've seen.
I would love to have him back tomorrow. If they would give it to him, I would be like, yeah, put him right now, put him back in. But if DC wants to be edgy, is what I'm saying, and they seem to want to be, then really go edgy. Like, push it then. If you're going to do it, then really put your money where your mouth is and go edgy. Let's try something then and try it and do it instead of kind of going, no. Then give me something. Because I feel like what you gave me was, I don't even know. I don't know what you gave me. You gave me a kid who kind of had an abusive background, but I'm not sure why. Then give me a kid who has, give me something. Because now I understand why the father wouldn't like him. He doesn't live up to the Luther standard. Like now I have some motivation. I can kind of go with you on it. If you're going to push it, or don't. Then go with the standard. Then give me Rosenbaum back.
They need to make these movies for the fans.
Yeah, then go with the fan standard. Or,
Exactly.
Give me Rainn Wilson. He's voiced Lex before, and he's great.
He
He's
did
a good
awesome. Yeah, he was good at voicing Lex.
Then let's go with him back. That's what I'm saying. Like either go follow the animation or not.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's different ways to do it, but DC hasn't quite figured it out. Wonder Woman 2, I couldn't get behind. I tried. I wanted to. The only
first
good
one
part
was
to me
cool.
First one was great. The second one, I was in the first 10 minutes during the tournament scene. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm in. The ending was, the only good part was Linda Carter. I was thrilled to see Linda back. I'm like, awesome. And even the scene was a little cheesy, but it was 80s cheesy. So I was like, cool. It goes with it. It was kind of like an 18 cameo. So I was like, yeah, this is kind of great. That was it. I hated the invisible jet. I was like, really? This is, what?
Yeah, I agree.
And you're telling me Bruce never noticed her? Bruce would have been about 9 years old when all this went down.
Mm-hmm.
Going by his age and Justice, just
yeah.
He never noticed a dream stone and a guy broadcasting this. He doesn't remember what? What the heck? And she been around this long? She didn't help Clark on the invasion? No, come on, you got to connect it, guys. It just couldn't get behind it. I tried.
I know. I've gone and I've seen a lot of these movies, and most of them I walk out of, and I'm so disappointed. I've waited so long to see a good movie, and except for like the Christopher Nolan Batman, I enjoyed all of them. I would have changed a few things, but I thought
I liked most of them. Heath Ledger was amazing.
Oh my God. When I first heard he was going to be the Joker,
I was questioning that.
And then I saw his performance. I'm like, oh my God, nobody can ever play that part again.
I was in on him 100%. I was, to me, Anne Hathaway is a better Lois Lane. That would have been my choice for Lois Lane.
That would have been a good choice. Don't get me wrong. I like what's her name? Amy
Adams.
Amy Adams, but she's just not Lois. And I agree with you. I think Anne Hathaway, she had the look, and I think she's probably got a better attitude about it.
I think she could pull it off today. I think if I didn't see chemistry with Amy and Tavel. I was missing it. I'm like, I don't buy these two together. It's just not something. I think Anne Hathaway, to me, would make a great Lois. She looks to me like Lois. I could see the chemistry more. I'm in on her being a Lois. That's my opinion.
And I wanted Jimmy Olsen, like from the comic books.
I wanted Jimmy. I have to admit, I wanted Jimmy. I do want Jimmy. I wanted, when he showed up as a CIA agent, I was like, this is Jimmy.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I'm sorry. That ruined it for me.
I like Zach, but even I was looking at Zach like, this is what we're doing with Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just have this is
I want
just
the
the name the
geeky
guy
kid.
used?
I want the geeky kid.
I want the geeky kid following them around looking for the scoop.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted. I wanted Jimmy Olsen. I didn't want this. I got this guy, and I'm like, what is timeout? What's happening here? I was a little like, I did like the Snyder cut better. I did see the 5 hours. I sat through it.
I did too.
I did
twice.
like it much better.
It still had its problems, but I did like it.
Still had its problem, but much better. Much better. Would I have done some things differently in that? Yes. But still overall, much, much better. Music was better. The whole thing was better.
Definitely.
I was missing Green Lantern though. I was missing a lantern.
We need a good Green Lantern movie.
You desperately need a I'm looking for HBO Max, and I'm wondering how that survived the merger, because I would like to see the lanterns. It didn't make sense that they weren't there. That was the big thing. It just, I'm looking at it going, this big apocalyptic thing is happening, and the lanterns, which were in the flashback, weren't in this disconnect.
And I want a little bit more serious Green Lantern too. I mean, he can have a little bit of sense of humor, but he's got to be a little more serious, like the earlier comic books.
I need something more. I would like to see Jon Stewart. I don't mind Guy Gardner. I don't mind him, because Guy just annoys everybody. So I kind of like that about him. You know, I would like to see that. There's more I want to see from the Lantern Corps in general.
I think Idris Elba would be good as Jon Stewart.
I could see Idris. I could definitely see that. I also think the guy from Tenet, Washington's son, Denzel Washington's son.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think he would actually be good.
Yeah.
I think he could be a really good Jon Stewart. When I saw Common from, he was originally cast as Jon Stewart, and I have to say he looked pretty good in costume when they had it from George Miller's Justice League Mortal. Thought he looked good. So there's a lot of possibilities there. I'd like to see what DC is going to do. I'm not, they lose me. They put out one thing where you're like, yeah, we're there. And then I'm like, what the heck is this crap?
Yeah. It kills me, because some of the movies you'll get maybe a good 60% of it is like good, but then that 40 that's bad is bad.
I anybody who's a New York Giants fan will get this. I kind of liken it to being a Giants fan. It's, flashes of greatness followed by stretches of mediocrity. That's really what it is with the DCEU. That's really what it is. You get a flash and you're like, yeah, wow. And then you're like, what do you do? And that's really what it is like being a Giants fan. It's the exact same thing. You get a flash and then it's gone. And what you're left with is like, oh, it's this. That's really what it is.
Yeah, I can sympathize being a Cowboys fan.
No, you see, you guys have been doing halfway decent. We're sitting here on the bottom of the NFC East. We got Daniel Jones to contend with.
That's a whole nother podcast right there.
Exactly. And they're talking about Garoppolo. So let's just take that down a notch right now. You at least have a quarterback.
This is true.
All right.
I'll say that.
We ain't got no room in the salary cap, and we're still going, well, there is Garoppolo sitting over there at the 49ers coming off shoulder surgery. He's looking real good for us. So, it is the Giants right now. So, you at least are looking at our lineup going, well, there's 2 wins for us, and checking it off.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you.
Wide receiver.
I haven't watched football in 3 years. I just kind of gave up.
I moved down to Charlotte, so I can't even get my games. Unless they play the Panthers, which I think they're playing week 2 or week 3. I get to watch one game, and it looks like you might be picking up. They're talking about Odell going to the Cowboys.
Oh no, I definitely won't watch it then.
Odell's gotten better. Come on.
I hate his attitude. I hate his attitude.
His attitude's gotten better. Since he's been on the Rams, his attitude's gotten a lot better.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Well, he came from the Browns, and you know what I mean? Your attitude's got to get better.
Yeah, I hear that.
His attitude is definitely improved. I think part of that was, I believe the issues is that a lot of times the NFL, they don't prep you when you go to a high view media place when you're a rookie. They don't. There's nothing there to be like, okay, this is how we're going to handle it. They just throw you there and go, swim. And that's it. And then when you act up, they're like, well, we told you. It's like, what did you tell them? You didn't help any of these guys. I think that's part of the problem, is nobody's there to kind of lead you in and do anything. And then they're out there on their own. But we'll see what happens.
And I can see you and I being buddies because we talk about the same stuff.
I bleed blue. That's why my Fae bleed blue in the book. That's the joke, because I'm a Giants fan. So when I had to make them bleed, I was like, oh, they're gonna bleed blue, just for the Giants.
Funny. Well, unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. So once again, the name of your series, and I'm assuming you have a website.
Name of the series is Birth of the Fae. First book is Locked Out of Heaven. Second is Thine Eyes of Mercy. Third book is From the Ashes. Then I have a novella in between called Fire, Ice, Acid, and Heart. And then the fourth book is Kingdom Come. You can check me out on birthofthefae.com or fourhorsemenpublications.com. And then another cool place to find me is called Bookie Call, which is this app that finds your next great date book.
Oh,
so
wow.
If you're looking for a book date, you can go check it out. It's on iOS or Android, and you can choose to swipe right or left, and it'll hook you up with your next great book, which of course I'm going to tell you should be Locked Out of Heaven. But just in case you're looking for something else, just in case, you can find fiction, nonfiction, all of that, but it's called Bookie Call, just like Booty Call.
And what about social media?
Check me out on Instagram at birthofthefae_novel. And then you can find all things Fae.
Okay. Well, I will put those links in the description to make it easier for folks to find you. And
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on and spending so much time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I hope I didn't talk your ear off too much.
No, I was enjoying it. If I didn't have another interview, I would say let's just keep going. But
we can discuss football next time then, and we can have that Cowboy Giants debate.
I definitely want you back on the show. I think we
would
could
love
have
that.
a great conversation. But once again, thank you. I want to thank all of you out there. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe, and I hope you'll come back. For those of you who are regular, it's because of y'all that I get to do this, and I have great people like Danielle come on my show. And until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless, and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network